Namaskar everyone. I would like to welcome all the members who have joined today for the session. I will briefly introduce Dr. Arun G, who is a global physician with over 40 years of service to the community in laboratory medicine in Fraser Valley hospitals. Dr. Arun G holds a doctorate of philosophy in biochemistry from University of Saskatchewan and Doctor of Medicine from University of B.C. and has a fellowship of Royal Colleges of Physicians and Surgeons of Canada. For the last 10 years, Arunji has dedicated his efforts in building a healthy society through collaborative transfer of knowledge to the community, with the major focus being on integrative and holistic approach to health based on best of East and West science and practice. And I think this is a very topical issue which we have today, especially in the current war with COVID-19 we are facing right now. So with this, I will hand over the platform to Arunji, who can take us through his presentation, and at the end of which we can have a Q&A session and have Arunji giving feedback to us. Thank you, Arunji. You can take over.
Thank you, Jagdish ji. First of all, warm welcome to everyone, wherever you're joining us from. And I'll be talking about Vedic wisdom and modern medicine. I want to start by acknowledging that we are having this meeting on a traditional, unceded, familial territory of First Nations. I also want to pay homage to the scriptures of Indus Vedic dharmic philosophy for the wisdom, and to the saints and scholars for passing all that wisdom to us so we can live a healthy life. I want to share with people that this is a journey and not a destination. I also want to say that these thoughts are based on the principles and practice of Vedic science, but it is my interpretation of those thoughts which I'm sharing with you. For success, you need to develop your own. The contents are not medical advice or treatment and it's all shared for information. For any specific conditions, you consult your physicians. Also, these opinions are expressed, are mine, and do not represent any groups I'm affiliated with. I want to acknowledge the support of my family who have guided me through this journey so that I could share these thoughts with you. I have no conflict of interest to share. I want to thank North American Hindu Association and all its volunteers to make it possible. I especially want to thank Dr. Arun Garg for his invitation and encouragement that I should do this. In this journey, I have been supported by many people, many groups, and too large a group to list individually, but I have listed some here and they're available. So what I'll be talking about is summary of the Vedic principles and practice, all in the context of health and leadership. Then I'm going to use COVID and chronic disease like diabetes as an example for how these principles can help and we could have a healthier life. Let me mention that in illness or health, we have two components, acute illness and chronic illness. What I'll be talking about is mostly chronic illness. Acute illness, in terms of our present system, it works and it's available. But most of applications of Vedic philosophy I'll be sharing with you is for chronic illness. And chronic illness could become lifelong, and I think most important thing is to prevent this illness. Health promotion and illness prevention are the main points which Vedic philosophy has taught us. It allows us to live healthy life, and that's what I'll be sharing with you. My key points are based on yoga science and its role in promotion and illness. What I want to also share with you is everything I will be mentioning is evidence-based and is based on the role of science. From This session, hopefully, you will engage, empower, and educate yourself so that you are healthy. And hopefully, through this association, we will have community engagement and possibly some follow-up projects. So this presentation is not just an academic theoretical presentation, but a call for action to be healthy. What the principles I'm talking about are embedded in these 4 foundations of Vedic principles of Dharma, Kama, Artha, and Moksha. And my interpretation of these are that Dharma just is doing the right thing at the right time. And in the context of health, it's the nutrition. We need to pay attention to nutrition. Kama relates to relationships, emotions, and stress lowering. Artha is success and leadership. And moksha is concept of decision making and critical thinking. In other words, Vedic principles have allowed us to live a successful life based on these 4 foundational principles, which were labeled by Sri Deen Dayal Upadhyaya ji when he started the integrative process of leadership. I'll be focusing on yogic practice, and I classify yoga according to, as you could see some examples, many people have classified, mostly you hear 4 yogs, Rajyog, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jap Yoga, and I have classified them in Gyan Yoga. We don't have time to go over all 5, but these 5 are the tenets of the practice and science and principle of yoga on which modern health can be built, leadership can be built. We'll be focusing mainly on Rajyog. I also want to share, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, my journey has been mostly learning from scriptures, from the books which we have. And Bhagavad Gita has been the mainstay of my interpretation of these yogas and how they apply in daily life. And Bhagavad Gita has many translations, and each one has its own perspective. What I'm sharing with you is summary of my interpretation of many of these, and all these references are available if you are interested. I also want to share that in my journey and my concept, I am saying that we need to adopt the best of East and best of West, and we need both. It's not the choice of one or the other, or one is better than the other, but I think we need to do develop ourselves using all of them together, and because of that, we are stronger. And some of the concepts are that in Eastern philosophy, we think circular. In other words, we go thinking life goes circular. Western, mostly linear. Western is experimental, where Eastern is observational, and so on. But the important one is integrative and reductive. And East is integrative. We think of life as a whole, whereas Western medicine is very reductive. It leads to analyzing to the cellular level. And I think, as you can imagine, when you do that, you are limited in your observations, not only observations, but outcomes. Again, the East is multidimensional, whereas West is unidimensional. So when you are reductive, you also focus on only one aspect. Eastern philosophy allows you to be multidimensional. Eastern philosophy is mostly individual or self, whereas Western philosophy is community. And there are several references in terms of East and West. And one of my journey is to bring the concept of East and West into modern medicine through medical school. I think if we could incorporate some of that in our training, we will be better physician, we'll be a better practitioner. So what are we talking about when we talk about Rajyog? to me, when I look at Raj Yoga is the foundation of all yogs. And in terms of medicine, it gives a beautiful description of how to reduce inflammation, which is the foundation of all diseases. It also allows you, if you practice, to decrease your immunological age. The modern medicine classifies as chronological age, biological age, and immunological age. Immunological age reflects the body state of how you fight diseases, how you fight inflammation. And younger has a better capacity of fight. With age, with aging, your immunological age decreases. By practice of some of these principles, there is evidence that you can improve your immunological age. So Raj Yoga is based on 8 limbs, and they are Samadhi, Pratyahara, Dharan, Dhyan, Pranayam, Asana, Niyam, and Yam. And what I'll be sharing with you a little bit is how each one of them really are a recipe for better health, and how by practicing this we can improve our health. In summary, Samadhi, which I have put at the top, because normally people put at the bottom, Samadhi to me is not that you have attained nirvana. Samadhi is a state of mind which allows you to critical thinking. Your ability to convert information into knowledge and knowledge into wisdom, which is also the 5th limb of Jnana Yoga. Pratyahara, Dharan, and Dhyan are relating to yourself. How do you withdraw from outside to inside for better health? In Eastern concept, there is the concept of physical body, astral body, and causal body. And these then allow you to integrate these 3 bodies, which in turn lead to lower inflammation and increase capacity for fighting inflammation. And when we think of COVID, there are no drugs, there are no vaccines. So all we are doing is fighting it through increasing our body's immunological capacity or preventing it from outside attack. Pranayam and asanas are the key components of Raj Yoga, which relates to mind, body, and soul through breathing and postures. And Niyam and Yam are the key components which I'll be talking about, because they allow you to control your behavior. Niyam is self-cue and Yam is EQ. So how you relate to others, and Niyam is how you relate to yourself. So these are the principles I'll be using to show you that how we can live a better and healthier life in terms of diabetes. So just a word about COVID, which is everybody knows is with us and has caused a havoc. And at this time, I just want to acknowledge that we are living in this challenging time. And please, everyone, please follow the social distance rules. And it's not over yet, even though we'll be opening, but it's still with us. And please follow the recommendations of the health authorities till it's all clear. I want to share with you is that in my analysis, all 8 limbs of Raj Yoga support inflammatory response through biochemical lowering and general building of immunity. In the question period, if there are some questions we could take on this, diabetes and more important pre-diabetes, biochemically speaking, starts with when insulin resistance starts, and it's related to inflammation. Inflammation of glucose with glycolated protein. And once again, diet plays a very key role. And in terms of our behavior through Raj Yoga, Yam and Niyam, if we control our diet, we can add many, many years of quality life. And concept of diet is not only what you eat, but how much you eat, when you eat, how you eat, and why you eat. In our own domain, I would say we are failing in all five. We eat at the wrong time, we eat too much, we don't eat right, we don't chew our food as our mother has told us when we are young, and we eat socially rather than when our body needs it. The other thing we don't do is reading labels. We must make sure what we are eating is very clear to us how much sugar is in that food. And I would say ounce of prevention is better than pound of treatment. And as you will see, diabetes is a very big problem for us. So I'll just pause for a second here and just say to you what I have said so far is that awareness, education, empowerment, and engagement are the key components of having a healthy life. And these come from our Vedic understanding of principles of Vedic philosophy of yoga. Vedic philosophy promotes positive health, promotes health promotion and illness prevention. In all our scriptures is mentioned many times that we should only focus on sattvic food, not tamasic food or rajasic food. And sattvic food essentially is what modern medicine, if you look at the guidelines of the Canadian Food Guide, is essentially a sattvic food proposed. If you don't remember anything from this presentation, my most important message is that added sugar is the sugar which you add is one of the biggest problem with diabetes. So if you could reduce that added sugar, you will add quality lives. And timing of food is very important. You should eat before sunset. In our culture, somehow we have got into eating late. And I think that is one of the big problems of metabolic machinery not working. And if you go to the Vedic philosophy, it says you should eat before sunset. So I think just remember that if we follow some of those principles, we have evidence that we can live healthy life. Now, I'd like to go in a little bit more details on those 8 limbs and further show you that how modern science is saying the same thing. These yams and niyams were prescribed for how you relate to yourself and how do you relate to others, EQ and SQ. And big component of those are in terms of how you relate to yourself is diet. It mentioned many times in the scriptures when they describe niyams that you will have sattvic food. I have prepared some videos for people which are available on YouTube, and I call them 5 Ks of eating. And they refers to when, why, what, how, and how much. And K really means kab, kitna, kyon, kaise, and kab khate ho, kitna khate ho, kyon khate ho, kaise khate ho, etc. And it's a diet which is the most important component of healthy living. 80% of the chronic disease of diabetes is delayable because of diet. Most people say genes. An interesting concept of genes I want to share with you is it's not in your functional genes, but there is a concept of epigenetics. In other words, how genes work. And interestingly enough, behavior and environment plays a big role in epigenetics. So again, that can be influenced by your behavior, not by your genes. So in terms of evidence, the genes are really the controller and stopper and reducer, and they could be affected by your behavior and eating. There are several papers this month have come, New Scientist and other journals, which show that by turning back your immune system clock, you can fight infection better. And by turning immune system clock, what it means is that you're making your cellular capacity stronger to fight when you're invaded by virus or bacteria or chronic inflammation. But diabetes is a chronic inflammatory disease. Moving on, the other limbs of Rajyog is pranayama or breath control, which is a life force. This is so critical in terms of breathing properly, because most of the time when you're breathing, you're not even aware you're breathing, and very shallow breathing. By following pranayama as prescribed in yoga, you increase that capacity of breathing. And though we don't have time to go through various types of breaths, there are 6 or 7 different breathings which are prescribed in yogic philosophy, each one covering a different aspect of body function. But all I will say is that when you do these breathings and do them properly, they bring the balance between body's parasympathetic and sympathetic nerve system. In other words, fight and flight, or cold and hot. They also, interestingly enough, touch on plexus and neurocrine, endocrine and enterocrine, and they are all related to how inflammation takes place in the body. And breathing has 3 components, and each one has to be done properly. Because of the time, I will just say that please have a good teacher who could show you how to do breathings properly, and it does have a major impact on general body health and inflammation. And there is a reference at the bottom, just came last year, which shows the evidence and the research, and there are many, many papers to confirm that. Asanas, on the other hand, are related to breathing, an integral part of yoga. And I would say right up front, asanas are not your gym exercise. Gym exercise cannot replace asanas. Asanas are a really balanced approach to rhythm, rate, and resonance of breathing and metabolic activity. And they have to be done in a certain order, and they have to be done in a prescribed way. And again, there's a paper just very recently which shows that you can increase your immunity function, a combination of breathing and asanas. The last group, which is equally important and relates to overall mind and intellect. Up till now, what we have been talking about will be functional, or if you want to use the example of symphony, the players. But the conductor and controller, which makes it all happen, lies in these 3 components of Rajyog: Pratyahara-Dharan and Dhyan. And I think, again, we don't have time to go in details on each one, but there is mounting evidence that by following these, you affect your emotions, you affect your balance, you affect your stress level, you affect through that, you affect your inflammation. What we don't fully understand as far as science goes, the role of the controller and conductor. Science is very well advanced in understanding how the players of the symphony are playing. So we have a very good idea how the glands are coming together, how the hormones are secreted, but who is controlling and how that behavior takes in, that really is the future. And I think I'm very hopeful that again, if East and West came together, we'll have a better understanding. So Pratyahara, Dharan, and Dhyan are key components of Rajyog, which allows us to lower the inflammatory impact of any injury. And inflammation doesn't have to be exogenous. Body itself is healing all the time. And I think the practice of yoga, when done properly, allows your body to self-heal as much, and you are more sharp and you're more together, and this way you're more successful. I cannot emphasize how important it is that we do whatever we do with full heart, but most important, we do it right. and we learn from a teacher, and in our language we call Guruji, who teaches us right. It is so important that that be done. All this then leads to what we started out by samadhi. And samadhi, again, as I said before, is a state where it allows you to critical think. So everything I'm saying, how do you know you're doing it right, is really that state which you achieve through samadhi. So ability to feel good, healthy, harmonious, and happy. It's a positive experience which comes through yogic philosophy and healthy life. I must say it's not abstract concept, but it's a real concept. The other aspect of this is leadership, which I'm collaborating with my friends of Leeds from Victoria, which have a program where they have 5 domains. And I've combined with our 5 domains of yoga, and we are creating a leadership program, which will be of great interest to people, because you cannot be a leader unless you feel from inside who you are, what you are, why you're doing what you're doing. And that's really what samadhi state is. And this yoga allows you eventually with Gyan Yoga. So in remaining time, I just want to very quickly go over COVID, post what needs to happen and what we need to do and how yoga will help or can help, and then diabetes. So COVID, still, we do not have any vaccine. It's a new virus we know very little about. So prevention is the most important thing. And prevention through social distance is our mode of operandi. So I cannot say enough, please follow that. Do not let your guard down, even though as we open. It is so important, because especially right now, as the mass herd will come, people will forget that there is a danger. So please take care of yourself, and please, the only thing you have is social distance. But social distance does not mean social isolation. Use this time to create social bonding. And I think video and programs like these are very helpful. One thing I would like to put a plug in, that if possible, and if it works for you, certainly it works for me, please do not use handshake or do not shake hands. We have a beautiful historical mudra called Namaskar, which is so beautifully done and brings you together when you're greeting someone. So hopefully that will become part of your routine as you go post-COVID. Different people have come up with different things, but Namaste, which is one of the highest degree of mudra as written in yogic literature, I think is really bringing your greetings from the heart to the person you're greeting. So I cannot emphasize enough how positive that relationship is, how positive that interaction is. So why not use it? I think that could be the benefit, and I think it will definitely reduce spread of person-to-person infection. It does increase the total immunological capacity through 5 components of yoga, especially breathing and especially diet. If you follow that, you will feel the benefit of immunological fight, because that's all we have right now till vaccine arrives or some specific drugs comes. This is a very bad disease. You want to be on its side so it does not decapacitate you. So do not give up, and make sure you have a good diet, sleep, mental relaxation, practice of yoga. The one I want to spend a few minutes is diabetes, but more important, pre-diabetes. Even though we are talking about diabetes, COVID, and it has caused a havoc, it has destroyed the economies of the countries, and we have to rebuild. But the numbers, when you compare those to diabetes and pre-diabetes, it boggles your mind. I call it tsunami, and we need to declare a war on it so that it remains in its pocket, it can have a major effect. And I'm talking about type 2 chronic diabetes. I'm not talking about type 1 diabetes. Just I have put some numbers, and you could see in Canada, there are close to 2 million people having diabetes. In India, conservative estimate is 30 million. I've heard as many as 60 million. USA 30 million to 40 million. But look at the second line, which is pre-diabetes, and look at India. We're talking about 100 to 150 million people. The numbers in locally, there are as many diabetics in our community, say in Surrey, as in the rest of the community. So that gives you some idea. We have work to do. It's a real problem. The thing with diabetes is it's a chronic problem. It's a lower problem, so you don't feel it like COVID did. So everything came to stop and everybody put their energy. Diabetes is like 1,000 cuts rather than one cut. But the productivity, it hits you in the prime of life. It affects all systems. So not only you have diabetes, but you have hypertension, renal disease, arthritis, heart disease, everything flows. So if you could prevent it, why not? So we must lower the burden of diabetes. The tools are there. I've shared some with you. The diet is the most important component available to us. My own prescription is that we do not, our food is good, our ingredients are good, but the way we put them together is where the problem is. We don't eat at the right time. We eat too much sugar. We have portion size control is not there. So those simple things which are prescribed in our Vedic philosophy, and if you say that you are reading them or you are using them, why not live them? Because to me, the real message is that if you practice yoga, you should live it. It's not just a matter of when you go and do it, but yoga is a living practice. Yoga philosophy is you live. We don't have time, but in terms of when you talk about karma yoga, that's what karma yoga is. The success depends on when you do it. So my parting comments are dialogue, and essentially in our analysis, we have found that the three groups of people who play very critical role in our community in health, first is the people, which is family, parents, mother, father, all those things. But we still also have tremendous role by priests playing in our community. So all our efforts has been through our places of worships and obviously the physicians. I don't know how many physicians have joined us here, but many physicians are now working very diligently to increase this capacity of healthy living. And I'm hoping that post-COVID, there will be further efforts to improve this capacity of increasing healthy living through interactions between people and their physicians, but do in a different way than what we do right now. Maybe we need community centers which are teaching integrative health, and at the Burnaby Hindu Temple, there are some conversations we are having with Swami Vivekananda Institute in India, and under Swamiji Satyaprakash-ji and Preeti-ji with Vyasa Canada to develop that kind of facility. I think if that comes together, that will be a great model for healthy living and application of sattvic food and sattvic knowledge. This particular association, you are new. If you're looking for some community projects, I think health, as you could see from COVID, is most important, and maybe this could be a effort whereby we try to build this capacity so community is healthy. We have to start small, as I've said many times, and I know it's hard, but if you could do one thing, that is no added sugar. if you because it has such a major impact on your body. So learn, practice, and live. I want to finish by just sharing with you the other project we are doing where we're bringing East and West together is in leadership. So chronic diseases and how to be a good leader. This should be of great interest to our youngsters who might not know enough about our basic philosophy of yogic Vedic philosophy. But what I want to share with you is that you cannot be a leader unless that feeling comes from within. And yoga philosophy and the 5 yogas, we have programs built on Rajyog, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jap Yoga, and Gyan Yoga, which matches with the modern leadership program of LEADS, which is designed right in British Columbia. And we are collaborating with them, and we'll be taking that to India for Indian doctors to have leadership training for them. So we are hoping that combined with chronic disease on the Vedic health, integrative health, lowering the inflammatory health promotion and leadership, we will have a healthy civil society. So I think I'll stop there, and thank you very much for listening. And I'm happy to take some questions and directions. Thank you.
Thank you, Arunji. I think it was an excellent presentation explaining how Vedic wisdom is all-inclusive and has the ability to guide humanity in all situations. And as you said, it's not abstract, but a real concept which everybody can follow. With this, we will open up the Q&A session, and we would request the participants to type in their questions in the group chat, and they will be taken up as they come, so that Arunji can answer those questions. Yeah, we have questions.
While we're waiting for the questions, if any of the listeners or participants were interested, I'll be happy to share some of the papers with them if they were interested in the science and the evidence.
Sure, I think, yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, we have a question from a listener. He's asking, is there a book that you would say is a must read for all of us?
You know, there are many books. There is a book, if you're specifically interested, there is a book on South Asian health written by my friend from California, which goes into this whole thing about insulin resistance. And he doesn't put the practical part of yogic philosophy integrated to that. But I think the best comment I could make is that book, if you're interested in diabetes and how it affects the South Asian community. But if you could join a yogic practice under a qualified teacher, combine that with your practice of living is the best I could give you is solution. But there are many books on yoga itself. Some of the books just came out from Harvard. They have come up with a book on yoga practice, which is a very good book. If you Google or if you go on website, there are many, and there are some very good yogic studios locally. And as I pointed out, we are hoping that we could build something custom-made, tailor-made for our community, which will combine East and West and the science and art of yoga. And that we are hoping that will be of some use.
Right, that was excellent. We have one more question from Nutanji. She wants to ask, what is the 8 pillars? Can you please explain that?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you well.
This is what is 8 pillars? I think it was part of the presentation, the 8 pillars.
8 pillars?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 8 limbs of RAJYOG I was talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, which Yam, Niyam, Pranayam, Asana, Pratyahara, Dhyan, Dharan, and Samadhi. That's how Rishi Patanjali codified Rajyog. What I have done is, as I said when I started, I've given you my interpretation of those pillars. This has been a journey for me, and it was very abstract. When I read it, it really didn't jive with me what it meant. So when I related to health, and because I'm a medical doctor and I know something about human body, just the light bulb went up. That's what they're talking about. So that's what I'm bringing and sharing, and that's what the excitement is for me.
Right, right. The same participant is asked, is non-vegetarian diet necessary for good health?
Diabetes?
Is non-vegetarian diet necessary for good health?
Yeah, good question. Diet, I said 5 Ks or 5 key components. So if you look at it, the kya khate ho is the minimum important one. Most important is kab khate ho and kitna khate ho. In terms of vegetarian and non-vegetarian, I think my own proposition is you have to eat what you like in small portions, except some tamasic food. If it's spoiled, and meat tends to get spoiled easier, and some meat which is very hard to digest, I think is important. My own journey, I have essentially vegetarian, and there are enough proteins. And I would, Jagdish ji, if I may say, important thing is the balance between carbohydrates, fat, and proteins. If you look at our vegetarian diet, people say, oh, I'm only eating vegetarian diet. But if that diet is 80% carbohydrates, that's no good. So if you look at our diet and have a look sometime at the thali people bring, it will have potatoes, it will have grain, and it will have rice. And those 3 are the major carbohydrates. And our diet is as much as 80% carbohydrates. So that only leaves 20% for proteins and fat. Ideal diet should be 40% carbohydrates, 30% fat, 30% proteins, and then obviously nutrients and supplements. And I think Canada Food Guide has gone in that direction. And we are collaborating now with some writers. It's a movement right now, and I think lots of work going on. What is a good diet? And I think a diet has to be something you enjoy. Food is something positive. Food is sattvic, but has to be a positive food. And I love cooking, and my wife and I enjoy cooking. And it's a great emotional attachment. So it shouldn't be just, oh, I'm just eating food. You know, you need to feel good about it. And so again, my message on that one is reduce carbohydrates. If you like meat, the chicken, fish, those are good things. Red meat is hard to digest, and you have to watch that. But I don't think it's as closed shop or open shop. And I have to say, our people live in a bit of an illusion that, oh, I eat good because I'm vegetarian. Just that's the same concept. People say it's a good food because it's natural. And those are myths. And I think I want to shatter those myths, at least for our session.
Right, right. So we have a next question from Dr. Preeti ji. She's asking, we talk about inflation as the cause of all diseases. Can you please explain?
Oh boy, that is fantastic question. I think thank you for asking it.
And there's an addition. Just a minute. There's an addition to that, and also if Vedic Ayurvedic food habits can be a solution.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. First of all, I have a theory, because I've been asking myself how some yoga teachers and yoga philosophy can say that it can affect all diseases. So what is the common cause? So as a medical biochemist, as a practicing physician, as a clinician, I've been asking that question myself. And as I already said about acute care versus chronic care. So I'm talking about chronic diseases. If you look at chronic diseases, all of them bar none, dementia, depression, Alzheimer's, renal disease, coronary artery disease, diabetes, arthritis, they all start with inflammation. And inflammation is, in simple terms, body's response to injury. That's what inflammation is. That injury can be exogenous, somebody attacked you like COVID did, or that could be you made it by not having a good lifestyle, or some inflammation body does, because diabetes, the pathophysiology is that if you eat too much sugar, it creates certain proteins which are glycolylated, and those are inflammatory. So that's the common pathway of chronic inflammation. Obviously, it's very complicated because using Western reductive pathways, each inflammation has maybe 20 or 30 different cellular mechanisms. COVID is a very good example where simply, I think people listening will enjoy this because they might have heard there is this enzyme called angiotensin converting enzyme type 2, which is in the lungs, and that's how COVID gets in. And what it's doing is there are two enzymes. There is a ACE1, angiotensin converting enzyme 1, and then there is an angiotensin converting enzyme 2. And body is so designed to balance good versus bad. So angiotensin converting enzyme 1 is causes the problems. Angiotensin converting enzyme 2 stops the problem. So if you want to think of it, it's inflammatory versus non-inflammatory. And guess what COVID does? COVID does paralyze ACE2. So now you have taken the body's ability to fight inflammation. So I think if we could build that in, so that's what chronic inflammation is. In terms of a magic bullet, there is no magic bullet. There is no one solution. This is where Western medicine has made a lot of progress to understand what those pathways of inflammation are. And I think we're going into autoimmune inflammation, and a lot more biologics are coming in terms of treatment. But my message will be the yogic philosophy, what we have talked about, when done properly, and it's not like you could do a little bit and say, I've done it. You have to have 5 yogs, 4 dharms I talked about, tenets, and then live it and have a good teacher. You can increase your immunological capacity. But that's asking a lot, and that's asking, and you have to understand, but I think we have to try. And I think if you want to have a general healthy, overall increased immune capacity, science and practice of yoga, including all 5 yogas I talked about, and dharma, kama, it's an integrated model, and it does increase the immune capacity.
Okay, excellent. We have another question from, okay, it only says user, it doesn't say a name. And they're asking, can you share some more details about the leadership program that you are developing?
Yeah, I think it's a work in progress. It's taking us some time. We are partnering with Dr. Graham Dixon of Victoria Royal Roads and Dr. Vijay Agrawal in India, and we're trying to design this for Indian doctors. Because as you read in your introduction, I have established this Canada-India Network Society, so which is really to take the best of the two. And we are hoping that we could bring the yogic practice here or at least for our community, to lower the burden of chronic diseases, but take the management and the leadership to India and Indian physicians so they can be better leaders. And what I'm adding to this is no point of just taking Western principles, but have them rise to the Kundalini, which is sleeping there, using these yogic principles. So if gentleman or lady who has asked, if they were interested, we could connect offline. But mostly we are designing it for physicians in India.
Right.
But it's available. It's available locally. Leeds program is available locally.
Right. Dr. Saroj Kumar is saying that we hear about the benefits of yoga practice. Can you give us a capturing guidance of yoga for a naive person?
Sorry, come again.
Can you please give some capturing guidance of yoga? Like how does, for a naive person, what they should be doing it and how they should be probably doing it, you know, and how yoga can be beneficial?
I think there are some very good yogic teachers, I think, in the audience, but I think for me and my journey, yoga started out as the combination of those 5 things I talked about. So Rajyog, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jap Yoga, and Gyan Yoga. And in reading Swami Vivekananda, his complete book of yoga, he emphasized on Karma Yoga. So what I'm driving is that body, mind, and soul works together. And to nourish that, it doesn't have to be that you have to be yogi so you can bend your body and twist it like anything. That's not yoga. That's waste of your energy. To me, yoga is that you have fusion of mind, body, and soul. In other words, you have critical thinking and you feel that internally and you have that insight. And I have seen people, good friend of mine, Dr. Arvind Lal, who runs the biggest laboratory in India, and my own energy is from Karma Yoga. In other words, you have an idea, do it. You want to study something, do it. Do it with passion. That's come to Bhakti Yoga. And then have a critical mind and Jap Yoga, and then Gyan Yoga and Raj Yoga. So in broad, that's what yoga is. But most people think of yoga as asanas and pranayams. And for that, I think one could join any of the yoga teachers. And the best program or protocol is what our India's Prime Minister Modi just started an International Day of Yoga. So that protocol, International Day of Protocol, which now is standardized, they have done a great service of standardizing it, and the booklet is available. So at minimum, if you want to do that, that's what I would follow. So International Day of Yoga Protocol, I would add Surya Namaskar to it because it's not included in it. And then the breathing exercises. But I would advise doing anything without a good teacher, because it's so important that you know what you're doing. It's a very precise science. If you don't do it right, if your rhythm is not right, if you're inhaling when you should be exhaling, you are retending when you should be not retention, well, you could turn it off. So I think done properly, that's very important.
Right. We have one more question from Dinanath ji. He's asking, could you expand on the Sattvic diet? What is a Sattvic diet?
Sattvic diet. These are good questions. I'm very pleased that, well, I think from a practical point of view, as I said, first and most important thing is portion size. You could have the best food, but if you're eating too much of it, that's no good. So I will include the first parameter of Sattvic diet is know how much you're eating. And in terms of modern science, we talk in terms of calories. And I think for a person who is not very active, not doing much exercise, 1,500 calories might be enough, you know. Though people, most people eat about 3,000 calories. So the first thing is amount of food. I include that in Sattvic diet. In terms of when you eat is equally important. If you have the best food, but if you're consuming it at 10 o'clock and then going to bed, then you're ruining everything because metabolic machinery is just not going to work. If you're eating when you don't need to eat, that's another problem. In our social parlance, we eat even when you're not hungry. So that's very important. How much, so how you eat is very critical. So you are attentive to food. You're not just gulping it and all those things, right? Now come to final one is what you eat, and that I would say a balanced diet between carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids, supplemented with vitamins. And the best example I could give is the current Canada Food Guide, which talks about vegetables and fruits and legumes, etc. Will be a good Sattvic diet. Sorry for a long answer, but that's one of my passion is this diet and nutrition.
No, that was amazing. In fact, I have a question myself, so we used to hear, in between few years back that one should have small meals every 2 hours, 3 hours, but then when you go back and read, what our Vedic system says, we probably read that you should have meals with a large gap in between, and you should rest your stomach, so that it is up and running the next time. So what's your opinion on this thing?
In terms of large gatherings?
Like what should be the frequency of meals we take during the year? How frequently we should be taking?
Yeah, I think our customs have allowed us to have 3 meals of a certain the way our day goes, right? So that's but my reading really says is you should eat when you feel hungry. If you're not hungry, your body will tell you when to eat. So that's in general terms. But I would say breakfast is important, and then a lunch, and then a dinner.
Right.
But those are the body requirements. And if you're not hungry, you should not eat.
Absolutely.
And on that one, Jagdishji, if you eat your stomach, then the hormonal balance and in terms of feeling full or not feeling full, it all just keeps stretching. So I think this is where we haven't talked today, the concept of fasting and how important fasting is in Vedic philosophy. And now there is a mounting evidence that what they're calling is intermittent fasting. And that's what I said when he said, don't eat when you're not hungry, plays a big role in terms of how body metabolic machinery works at the mitochondrial level. I don't want to get too deep in science, but fascinating thing is that a lot of science is coming. A fair amount of work in this area.
Right. We have one more question, which probably we can squeeze in, is from Dr. Saroj Kumar. He's asking, could you please mention about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and its implications?
Yeah, that's I'm getting beyond my expertise. I'm not, but I think visceral fat and fat accumulation, which you might not see, plays a big role in metabolic controls. And if a combination of food we eat and Dr. Kumar is talking about non-alcoholic, so even the pathophysiology is not well understood, but I have seen a paper which talks about wheat and the wheat belly and the conversion of some of that directly into storing fat. And I must say I'm getting beyond my expertise, but there is a component, a basic component is that you could look very slim But if your body inside is storing fat, that's a problem. And
Absolutely.
most of that fat is stored in the liver. The liver is the big metabolic machinery. So that's what non-alcoholic infiltrative fatty liver we talk about. And a lot of it is related to diet and lifestyle.
Right. Okay, I think we are ending the session now. Thank you so much, Arunji, for your wonderful presentation and sharing your thoughts on building a healthy society post COVID-19. And I'm sure we all benefited, and it provided valuable insights on how the way should be going forward. And as you said, this is just the beginning, and this is not a destination. So it's a journey we have to follow. It's not the final destination. With that, I will also like to thank you all the participants who participated today. Thank you so much. Namaskar and Shubhratri. Thank you so much.